Teams. The meeting is now being recorded. Please ensure your microphones are off, and before we begin, I will ask Reverend Hugh Stewart to lead us in prayer. Thank you.
Di gras for agus ulevianich. A sin son vi gat bol ag an vasho. Gur gia agus ahras chior na ias a crias. Mother gutser son chiolk de gras ir chraun chesi. De vas ich na ruim agus nar nache. Son behen jo hiori hort a stiach door fein ustrochi. Do gachun chus in jereps agus a bunigin aun. Sa sin torsku tank an vasho. Son gach baul agus gach officar. Ha crain cónach an sy'n hamer an badlin sio. Son a fi jespet nihin cochiad sy'n clawn agus ffyrddym Eilean. Sa sy'n y gwydau a ieg am ydw hyn y bwlwch ag ora glychus, gras agus grach, gymryd y bianach ag clawn feg Eilean noi cri, agus na teacher yn sy'n sgolch yn i'r ffad. Agus gran an at féin vi gat a fein yn llach, yn stúr agus y mysnoch. Bianich iad yn eisiau had cryn cwndach y gennyf cogwnion cwtrymach y hyf clain agus ffyrddym Eilean. Sgach ni as yn ysierig son ei mahanus pegi, ond yn anam agus sgach Christ. Amen.
Thanks, Reverend Stewart. Right, so in regards to declarations of interest, members must leave the meeting or end the call remotely. And a reminder that the meeting is now being recorded. I'm ruling item 10 as urgent, and first we'll start with tributes. Since the last sitting of the committee, there have been a number of sad bereavements affecting former staff of the Nicholson Institute. Roddy John Smith. The school flag flew at half-mast to mark the sudden passing of Mr. Roddy John Smith on Tuesday, the 30th of April. Roddy John was former assistant principal teacher of mathematics at the Nicholson Institute. He was a highly intelligent and extremely witty colleague who will be missed by so many. Our thoughts are with his wife, Nan, and the rest of his family at this difficult time. Ian Morrison. The school flag flew at half-mast to mark the sad passing of Reverend Ian Morrison on Thursday, the 16th of May. Ian was teacher of computing at the Nicholson Institute for many years. He also held the post of principal teacher in the TVIE project, as well as deputy rector at the Nicholson Institute before he followed his calling to the ministry. He will be sadly missed by his former colleagues and friends from the school, as well as his many former pupils in the community. Our thoughts are with his family at this very sad time. Douglas Ledbetter. On Monday, the 20th of May, news reached of the passing of Mr. Douglas Ledbetter, former principal teacher of music for many years at the Nicholson Institute. Douglas had been part of the musical fabric of the island for decades and will be sadly missed by so many close friends, former colleagues, former pupils, and fellow musicians. Although he retired from the Nicholson in the late 90s to take care of his mother, he continued to be involved in the school in many ways. He was a key player in the school production of Les Miserables last year and in The Wizard of Oz the year before. Douglas will be missed by many, and our thoughts are with his family at this sad time. Elizabeth McKinnon. We were deeply saddened to learn of the passing of Elizabeth McKinnon on Tuesday, the 11th of June. Elizabeth came from South Africa to the Nicholson Institute in 2003, where she worked as a modern languages teacher. She has become a full-time support for learning teacher who specialised in teaching English as an additional language. She will be missed by her colleagues and former students, all of whom have a Mrs. McKinnon story to tell. Our thoughts are with her family at this very sad time. On now to the good news. So, Modin Adal. We congratulate all the competitors and prize winners at the recent local mods which have been held across the islands over the last few weeks. Participation has been very high and they have provided an excellent showcase of Gaelic language, culture and the arts. Children's Services. We have a young person who has been in the same foster care placement for the past 10 years, having experienced significant loss and trauma in her life. and through the support of her carers, social work and education, has achieved the grades to allow progression onto studying adult nursing at a mainland university. That's really good news. Skolnaru. Skolnaru's football team took part in Knac's national Kuaknaklania finals in Inverness on Wednesday, the 30th of May. This year in total, 109 teams from throughout Scotland competed, and Skolnaru were delighted to come home with silver medals. So that's a great achievement. A group of P6 Skolnaru pupils travelled to Edinburgh to take part in the Euro Quiz final held in McCowan's Hall at the University of Edinburgh on Monday, the 10th of June. Following their success in the Western Isles heat, they demonstrated great motivation and commitment in preparing for the final, and despite not winning, we are very proud of how well they represented the school and the Western Isles. Skolnaru's officially achieved the Rights to Respecting Schools Gold Award. The assessor identified a focus on sustainability, strong pupil voice, and the caring and inclusive ethos of the school as some of the key strengths. Tongue School. Tongue School is going to be filmed with Education Scotland on the 11th of June to highlight our successes in learning for sustainability, with a particular focus on the theme community. Tongue School and Nursery are delighted to announce we have received our Rights Respecting Schools Gold Award. After lots of hard work from pupils, staff and parents, we are delighted for all our efforts to be recognised as we ensure the CRC is at the heart of every aspect of our school. Urcha School. Following School na Urcha's success at Modern Newest, where they won the Macaulay Ashkinis Playlet Trophy, their drama Crack Mean Kyo GM 4 to 7 have been invited to perform on the Briar stage at the Eilean Dulca Festival in July. Back School. Sarah Morrison from Back School took part in the Alzheimer's Scotland 90K Step Challenge in January. Sarah and her mum Joanna walked a combined total of 194,099 steps through some very challenging weather. They raised an amazing total of £2,020, all of which will go directly to the Western Isles branch of Alzheimer's Scotland. Laxdale School. Laxdale School were awarded the Eco Schools Green Flag. This is their 7th Green Flag Award. In the assessor's report, it was said, "You have worked really hard on your wide-ranging actions to make your school a more environmentally friendly place to be. Well done." Castle Bay School. We are immensely proud of our social enterprise group, Kafir Kapakia, who picked up winning award for all their hard work. 4 of the 6 from the group travelled to Inverness, where they spent the morning telling people about their venture. And finally, Katie Campbell. I would like to pay tribute to Katie Campbell, who is retiring from Scoldalborough. Katie started work in the canteen the same year it was formed, 49 years ago, and it is estimated that she has served around 2 million meals in her time there. There will be a ceilidh for Katie in the school on Friday the 21st of June as a thank you for all she has done for the school, pupils and the wider community. So we'll move on to item 1, and that's the minute of the meeting of the 23rd of April 2024 for approval. Approval? They all shout. It's all right. Okay, thanks. Right, declaration of interest. We'll just go back over this. Members are asked to declare any interest they have on any item of the agenda. It would be helpful if members express why they are declaring an interest in the items concerned. Members in the meeting, please do so now by pressing your microphone or remotely through Teams by using the raise hand function. Please ensure the declaration is repeated prior to the relevant item and you adhere to the protocol as previously indicated. Are there any conflicts of interest or declarations of interest? All right. Yep.
Chair, I'm not a member of your committee, but just to cover all bases, I'll be leaving the meeting at item 11 as an employee of UHI.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Cheers. Thanks, Councillor Murray. Cheers. Right. So we'll move on to item 3. That's Children's Services, Thorough Care and Aftercare Policy and Procedures. This report seeks approval for the revised Through Care, Continuing Care and Aftercare Policy and Procedures Manual and approve an uplift in the Leaving Care Grant for care experienced young people. Mr. Jack Libby is unable to attend today's meeting, so Donald A. MacLeod will speak to the report and answer any questions. Thanks, Donald.
I'm Dovrin Sean and Alec. I just want to check if anyone needs to get headphones or be ready for translation, just to give you a chance to do so. I'm Gyuri in the Kujok nach Buringa Meshel Bivi Kundran in Lahir and you, Hanuringa Vikundran Yarasto, Amihin Dovrin Shinashkasho, Fiachimidi. Harry Sherer Fat, agus Christian record, ach ma Karl nach Horing of record, Sheikh Nachel Meister Lippy Kunderein, for me, screaming she as Christian, agus Yoshin Freckert Huku. Ha Naiskashor Tortuku, policy is on Trochurum, agus a Stay Kurum is an oig in the Helenin. Ha policy tort and Lina the login Rioch Gaharage, Kianch the Plana Galtonist Nashanta. Agus cydwch yn y cynnych gyfer sy'n logol ys yn chwlwg ala hac yn ddianw ys yn oegri a ffag al cwrym y chwrle. Ha a da folwch as yn aich gyrast, ha a molwch yn dechrau lys ymholus I ŵr, agus yn tolich gylio'r ceis mi hort cael a ha loeb ymholus I, agus cydwch ha sy'n tort tafardist oegri sy'n mi a ffag al cwrym y chwrle, agus yr asta ha sy'n ac ar y da filas da hiad nŵt, agus hanais gylarach molwch ys o'n sy'n hwgal sŵas go da fila agus cwg hiad nŵt. As mi tolis gilio'r cystion yr agard fo gyn chan y baid ha gyori cael ein o'ch mae yn aisg cyn, nio ymholas i'r a ha on a paper taik dis yn aisg.
Okay, thanks, Donald. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate, I'm not a member of your committee. It was just a question on the team around the child and in regards to the workable plan that's made in detailing specific goals and objectives and timescales should be compiled with tasks and roles agreed amongst the group members. I wanted to ask, are the family involved in this? Or is there an assessment whether the family should be involved? How does that work? It wasn't really clear or explicit if family members were involved in this group in terms of agreeing plans.
Is your mic off? Just put it on, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Just to clarify, is that in relation to birth families in the circumstance of this that you're referring to, or the care families? Yeah.
Put your mic on. Sorry, sorry, it doesn't matter. Go on.
In the circumstance of a team around the child, that absolutely includes the parent or guardian of the young person. In some circumstances, there are professional-only meetings that happen in between these that are for professionals to coordinate and plan, but teams around the child will always include the designated parent or guardian. In the case of children in care of the Comhairle, there may be also some circumstances where birth families may be able to attend, but that does depend on the individual circumstances.
I thank the Chief Officer for that answer, and I'm reassured that the family are included, agree plans going forward. So that's very reassuring. Thanks very much.
Thanks. Anybody else? Anybody other questions? Oh. Councillor Francis Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to be not so much a question, but very much supportive of the rising of the grant to the young people leaving care. And I think the bit of good news you gave us at the beginning about the young person going into study at a course on the mainland just gives, underlines how important it is that we keep pace with the cost of living and the considerable costs that young person will have without a non-corporate family to fall back on. I'm sure those of us who did do that path away from the island to go to university will have fond memories of aunties and uncles stuffing the odd piece of money into your hand as you were leaving, and these young people don't have that support. I think it's really important that we support them appropriately.
Okay, thanks. Right, so if there are no other questions, where are we? Sort of glasses. Any other questions? Oh, sorry, that's my left hand. It's my left eye. Thanks, sorry, Councillor MacDonald.
Thanks, Chair. Your left brain. So working. Yeah, I'm fully supportive of this as well. But can I just ask one question? It's easy enough to point out that it's going from 2,200 to 2,500, the £300 increase. Is that 300 times 1 times 5 times 100 times 500? Or what's the additional £300 going to cost us at the end of the day?
I'll just answer that in English for these. At any given time, we'd have between 1 and 5 care leavers. So it's a very minimal cost to the Comhairle. The most at any one time that we'd like to have as a care leaver in any financial year has been 5. Sometimes it's as little as 1, and possibly in any given year, possibly none. So the overall cost to the Comhairle of the proposal is very minimal, no more than a maximum of a couple of £1,000.
Right, so if there are no other questions, do members agree to the recommendation at 3.1? Thank you. Item 4, Tai Solis Bairns House update report. Item 4 on the agenda provides an update on the Tai Solis Bairns House developments. Donald will again speak to the report and answer any questions. Thank you, Donald.
O'r antag, am yr eich dwylich na chwring am eistedd lybu fi cwnwyr yn ysyn cwnrach rys yn aes gyhasio, ach bryn mi hyn dys agos fiach ymri ar cystion ar y cyrp na laib. Ha aes gyn yr hyn go mis mewnch yn eich da heiwch gan yng nghymiti asio y bryn i'r planig yn y hacyn i'r son togal Bairns House on y stiorn fach agos yn oper fa na siarfys yn chwania ac yn y gianw ys o'n stiwch yn gadw sy hasio. Hasyn ron sio fasyn y sŵlwch eich gymig yn ngarys Bairns House ac fel yn anam yn eich yn Tai Solis am ffys am gyda cwrach ron sio mae yen yn anam Bairns House ac yn eisiau hader yn anam Tai Solis o hordir. Hasyn fasyn yn hollwch y cwrach gymig stage on y tocoloch St Lennon's on y mi yn Ballasjornavach agos fasyn Diwrnod ysgymig yn tocoloch gylier asyn yr ychlechgych is son yn Tai Solis. Ach at y fad y gwybr asyn hannig dwliad ys yn ard planach is son yn tocoloch asyn. Agos horsich skippe siarfys yn chwania yn o'r asyn sgrwydych tocoloch yn yle gyda gyfeir ychlechgych is son y gyrus y hasio. As jai sgrwydych yle ianw hwgat corym clechgych rwmern agos offisyn on yn unedlias ach i ffalwm tocoloch a hacyn mae'r ha yn rhain ffyrddym. Yn nocoloch asio ffosgawn a liorlan on y Ballasjornavach agos rhaemas na hoffisyn ffosgawn a liorlan na chalad yn clechgych gymwr yr aste agos le sgrwydych le offigan na Comhairle dyn eisiau endych eich gre yn nocoloch yn y liesach i ffyrddym y fer y siar is o'n clechgych is o'n yn Tai Solis. Agos a ffitsach as yn aisg mae yen yn oper hadyn is ianw is o'n styrch eich Tîn chan yng Nghymru agos yn eisiau ha naes gylarach molach ffon y beil son clechgych yn y liesach i ffalwm is on yn Tai Solis yn atio ymlaen y fac i'n ron asio is on clechgych tocoloch St Lennon's. So mi tolig cystion ar agordir calch yna am i'r gram un sy'n.
Okay, thanks, Don. Does anybody have any questions? Wow. Okay. Right. Okay. Number 4, where are we? So, do members agree to the recommendations at 3.1? Thank you. Right. Number 5, item 5, it's update on consultation with users of the ground floor of St Lennon's Centre. This item provides an update to members on the consultation with users of Pointers Youth Centre linked to the Bairns House initiative. Fiona McInnes-Begg is available to speak to the report and will answer any questions. Is Fiona around? Is it online? There she is. Right. Okay, thanks, Fiona. Cheers.
So in terms of the consultation results that we had from young people, so 109 young people responded to the consultation. We looked at just those who currently used the Pointers facilities at this moment in time, and we're pleased to see the response that we got. It's not really a surprise to have for us to have realised that the young people themselves were seeing that, you know, where it's based and what it's meant to them is something that is very tangible, and any change to that for the users would feel they would feel was a disservice to them. So you can see in the consultation results, there's a wide range of groups that actually meet in the centre, and although they considered the other options about change with, I don't know whether they spoke about their discomfort about the changes by suggesting that none of the other locations would have been appropriate for them. But if you look at the responses at question 7, what does the centre mean to them? So a safe space, a place to meet friends, feeling that their voices are heard, learning new skills, all of the things that we would expect young people who are in a youth work environment to benefit from. So I suppose to conclude, the young people have spoken, and we just hope that the committee will hear what their feelings are on the matter, although obviously the previous item might suggest that the pressure is off at this moment in time.
Okay, right. Thanks, Fiona. Is it Councillor Macaulay?
Thanks, Chair. Be Macaulay, Stornoway North, not a member of your committee. Thanks very much, Fiona. It probably is quite fortunate that these two reports are coming out at the same time. That the premises isn't suitable for the Bairnshoes, and that the users of St Leonard's want to stay there. It might have been different had the first report all come out that way. So I welcome this, that they're going to be staying and have the chance to stay there. There's many, as we all know, there's many more groups as well as the youth using that facility. My question, I don't know who to, maybe not for this committee, but my question, I know that upstairs offices, if I'm correct, are eventually going to possibly move back to the main building. So what kind of securities are we offering these youngsters that have filled in this form that this building isn't going to be sold, or that this isn't going to crop up again in the near future? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Maar ha kusen en draste ha sin sulige gemi officer sheriff in Flanje is on unie haas de klechke na official huurstede aan het toekeloch St Leonard's agus be is on unie haast at ze had de steerge en hasolis on in een lesige film. A station be ik niet meer een geheim zien klechke na official sin is on sheriff in Flanje no niet een goede kaart kon lag aan in het lesige film kon larische en hasolis. Ach yn draste gaan je zuurlijk run film maar sheriff in Flanje na official ha klechke St Leonard's huurstede rast hort mag zo'n unie garage rast kan je a station Bia is on a Comhairle fat they had the Giori Yanele Tokolach St Leonard's a station. I mean tix lisha nice ha rowing in you gal an okri getur Giori Kamalangar is a hake on a pointers ha and the Biaken of Comhairle fat they had the Giori Yanele Tokolach St Leonard's Mayerig.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Murray. Come on, both together, as a flipping. Yeah, go on then, Councillor Mackenzie.
Age before beauty.
Well, yeah, okay, right, yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'm very glad to hear some of the voices from the back there. So I don't know if they're representing the groups that have been interviewed, but obviously young monks groups have been represented. And I have had quite a lot of representation from different groups, and it's actually surprising to see the number of groups here that are represented. So it's not just the pointers drop-in, as many people sort of have assumed, but there's so many different groups that are, you know, relying on this particular building. But many, I mean, I don't know, people probably have had invitations to go to the Pointers Cafe on a Saturday, for instance, and young people who, you know, have, some of them have problems and so forth, and have, that's one of them there actually, I think. And, you know, they say, and I think Fiona has mentioned here that some of the reasons that they rely on so much Pointers as a safe space and various other reasons like that. So I'm very encouraged from one point of view that at least the recommendations are to stay in Pointers as it is. I'm not quite so happy about the last answer, and I hope there is a future there, and that'll be a permanent home. Thank you.
Cheers, Councillor. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say I welcome the report, and I'd just like very quickly to pay tribute to Fiona and her team for actually and everyone that's working to help these groups and support these groups. You do a great job, and you've turned a building into a place where young people think of it very fondly. So well done to you and your team for doing that. So thanks.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Gordon. Right, so are there any other questions? Blinking things on my head. Are there any other questions? No. Okay. So do members agree to note the do members agree to note the report? Yeah. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to item 6, which is HMI inspection CLD progress visit April 2024. This report relates to HM Inspector's Community Learning and Development Progress visit in April 2024. Again, Fiona McKenna-Spigg will speak to the report and answer any questions. Thank you, Fiona.
So we had the pleasure of our colleagues from HMIE. They came and visited with us at the end of February this year as part of a programme of visits that was happening to all 32 local authorities, as opposed to being a scheduled scrutiny visit. So it was something that was happening to all 32. They were looking at the progress against our 3-year plan, which needs to be refreshed in September 24. So they came, we arranged visits through a number of our partner organisations and with the team itself, along with our steering group, which is a multi-agency group of partners. And they found, as is contained in the report at 6.1, they saw a change in the strength of the steering group, and felt there was a shared vision from partners around the group. They recognised that the CLD, the council CLD team, were knew their communities and their learners well enough that they wanted to comment on it, and that our adult learning staff were using their individual learning plans for those adults that they were supporting. So some very positive comments from the inspection team. Obviously, we have it wouldn't be an HMIE inspection without some areas for improvement. So they mentioned that all of the work of partners wasn't entirely reflected in the current plan, which of course is no surprise, bearing in mind we're in year 2.5 of 3 years of it. And we still have to work on our SMART targets within the plan to ensure that the work of all partners is represented and is easily identifiable when we go to review it. And obviously consultation. The current plan was done in the COVID times. So we were asked to create the plan even though we didn't have freedom of movement, if you like. And so the feedback to communities and to groups that we would normally liaise with was limited because of COVID. So, you know, that's certainly something that we would accept, that we need to look at how we engage with folk, and more importantly, how we feed back to communities what we hear from them. So I was very pleased with the way that the inspection had gone, and you know, hats off to partners and the staff for their involvement in it. Just one thing to point out: the progress visit focused on Lewis and Harris and not Euston Barra. So very often when they visit, they will decide what they're going to look at. So the focus this time was on Lewis and Harris, just in case there's any concern that Euston Barra aren't mentioned much in the report.
Okay.
So I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions for Fiona? Oh, Councillor Francis Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair, and congratulations to Fiona and her team on surviving the HMI. I noted in the report itself that certain aspects of very good practice were picked up, one in Point, one in Harris, and Macaulay College as well mentioned. I know, you know, it's obviously you don't have the numbers of staff you once did across the islands. Is there capacity to learn from the good practice and transfer, or is that something that you just don't have the capacity to do?
Obviously, we lost a couple of posts in the last 1.5 years, which has definitely had an impact. But within communities, and maybe particularly through the external funding that we're getting access to, there are development posts being filled across the Western Isles. And so I suppose it's our job as a team to make sure that the links with any development workers that are being employed to look, you know, to do community development work, we have to ensure that that is strong to make sure that we're able to respond to the needs of communities. So that's one way that we would look at doing that.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Okie dokie. Right, so do members agree to note the report? Thanks, Fiona. Thanks a lot. That was really good. Do members agreed? Right, so we'll move on to item 7. No, item 7. Report by HMI Inspectors of Education at Lionel and Lionel. This report details the outcome of the inspection of Lionel and Lionel by HMI inspectors from Education Scotland. Mr. Donald A. MacLeod will speak to the report and answer any questions. Thanks, Donald.
Ha mi dyn chi'n horsach nach bwring Patricia Niclod to skriven eist begonnen we konden in nach Eilean laher. Ha skip scruti for the malpa konden in new reached on a Comhairle as wij Tricia we konden u as a scholar hashin. So ha mi dyn nach we konden as shomer in you. Ha an eisge short at fisige de veil me jen scruti ga je nu on a skol Lionel agus on a scholarich Lionel na betrayas of Leonese. Ha ga skippy stech an a skol for loch scrúti fallum alba agus cónlarú loch scrúti fan an commission cúrim cúideach. Van commission cúrim agus fallum alba tar scrúta gur a scolarich agus fallum alba hína tar scrúta gur a bhúnscol. Ga oper bwr i enw as ysgol Harris y Dyfliwn a sio leistúrach fo Patricia Niclodge efo rei ysgol Harris y Dyfliwn a sio agos fashion tolig fican gynnech torchan y sy'n undach as yn aisg fo y malapa. As yn aisg a sy'n a hyn rwy'n i niw ha tord ffysrach mae yen yn y biech yn y hwc fo y malapa agos anghymission cwrym ysgol agos ysgol arich agos on y paper taik cwjoch ha litr a ha tord ffysrach mae yen na pwynt gynniarst a heg ysgol agos cwjoch da chwys berfara fel opera ac a has drigianu. Yr ysgol hyn, yr fwnsgol, hwg ffylm olapa biech da gagan y lwch i yn aca. Hiader se ein soch i chacus agos mesych agos hwgad gaif yn arif ma. Agos yn arna lwch se y gardachych bwlioch agos colonich agos yr eist hwyrad yn arif ma agos fasyn gyma tolit synica. Yr fwnsgol yr eist po ffylm olapa as na lwchyn fe tortulation yr eist se hwyrad yn arif ma. Agos yn orsyn yr go commission chwydym. Y fiach gyhw giadsyn fe iadsen y tort sgrwyd ag coig lwch un a hac hyn y son ysgol arich agos hwyrad un fa ffyr ma agos ceir y fe ma. Sa'ch ni gyndach eich gyrru sy'ch eich ma sio gan ysgol is on jirig ysgrwydach. Agos yn eisiau hysgol y gwbyr is on plan ysdiach is on ardys i enw leis y nafoen cyhannig as y naisg agos chafi fel alabad o'r sgrwydach sy'n mi alad ysgol yn eich a tolig mae'r ha sy'ch eich ysgol. Sa'n mae tolig cwestiwn o'r ffo bail mae un yn gwysper se.
So, does anybody have any questions for Donald? Convener.
Pobl eisiau gwngwyl son y naes gasio agos ha ma fi fecyn y naes gasio mae un ysgolion agos ha lwch gwbroch agos gyharach trys ni cloj rym molyg son yn nwbydd had fi gianw an ysgolion agos pobl eisiau gael idw son y naes gasio fi'n o'ch agos ha ma fi fecyn naes gasio ar y biolwg.
Okay, thanks, Convener. So if there are no other questions, do members agree to the recommendations at 3.1? Thank you. Right, item 8, education provision, annual review of mothballed schools for 24-25. Item 8 is an annual report and provides an update in relation to mothballed educational provisions at Tolster, Brisaclit, Park and Bernera schools and to review the status of each. Mr. Donald A. MacLeod will speak to the report and answer any questions.
More than thank. Ha an eis geschoten who can gonna say an committee a show the blue and as hacking has sculpture nakin ha mar a that of viola mothballed hacking the screw the hort or a hula bliuna agus in the region you shouldn't say a kerst on a skull. Maar ha kusen raste had das skull akin je had dunch fat on a sige mothball agus had dag glas sakin on a sculpture a paravel class canan ha mothball kujoch. A tosig an horsel in the sculpture had dunch fat ha skull holostach ga gunig on a vliona daichits in Giag agus skull viarnerich ga gunig on a da ichits in the richet. Na scola sin ha dani giwryd ys y mi is on dynia hwyd ysgech yn ysgol yn y clas y hyn ymliwna ys dani giwryd ys y mi fan y choers noch is on yn ysgol sy'n ysglyg yn ard y rysg. Sas ni sŵlwch eich lein y moli yn fan naisg torsach eich cogyn ys y choers noch mae un agos le parent y mae un dŵnach yn ysgol sy'n gyldogol. Chanwring ein ffacol ysgol sy'n rwata on y seuch eich mothball. Haken die scuurte gen we zo de blione ach gaan we dingen akel gen rol go brien die choirs nog begin doen na skolchen guldagal ma jerig so nisha le skol holostak er vi duntjes aan koik blione agus skol pianai er vi duntjes aan 3 blione hasin suluk er vis korm ma gofi gern show steach ac yn horsi sin konachliche choirs nog is aan dunig na skolchen sin gehoffigal. Harris yn na sgol a ha dwynt i'r ffat, ha da sgol ac yn cydioch far efo'r clas canan dwynt. Ond ysgol na parc, ha clas canan galig as ysgol dwynt, agos ond ysgol friasglid a chlas canan biola dwynt. As y chiad bliwn efo ysgol friasglid leis y chlas biola dwynt, hannig gan y 3 ewroders yn son ysgol chlas biola ysglyg yr eist, a chadanig arfen fa ffracroch gilior son ysgol ysglyg. Agos parent yn fannu clanio chwyrch ysgol dyn yla, chyrwad y gyn chwyrch gyn achrych i gad ysgol ffer ar o no criaca. Fon warsen son daflu o'n rwy'n chadanig ewroders y mi son ffysglych clas biola o'n ysgol friasglid clas sy'n y ffyrwch ac yn neud sy'ch y ffer fel la. O'n ysgol na parc, yr eisiau clas galig dwynt, agos gada ha corang ac yn eisiau choes noch mae un taich gyhort gan ysgol agos niastrych ysgol sy'n harf yn y haca, chadanig ewroders son steirch yr eisiau clas galig gytwyr agos gada ha gan y ysgol yn nas y galig as y choes noch ysyn ha dy ras dy adolsio ysgol na loch agos y parent yn y gywyr i gylien seich ysyn yr erd. Agos chadanig ewroders y mi son na dyn hyn ysdech son clas y hyn as ysgol sy'n y farwch. Mae'r asyn i sŵlwch y siechgl yn ysgol sy'n asyn ffysgil ti'r ffat chadjig i ewroders y mi ysgol yr ffat y gwynach agos chadjig i ewroders y mi yn clas sy'n y gwynach gyda'r bysyn i tord sŵl y chwle bliwna yr ysgol ar y chlas fiola ond ysgol friasglid agos y chlas galig yn ysgol na parc chaffatsgan ysgol hyn awn. Sa'n mi tolig sgilio'r cystion hort fo bail mae un yn gwysper a sio.
Does anybody have any questions? Oh, Councillor Mackenzie.
Yeah, it's not about a specific school, but I noticed it mentions under Bernra 6.16 that the council has continued to maintain the building at conditions suitable for future reinstatement if required. And I presume I don't think it mentions it for the other 3, but obviously it'll apply to them as well. So I'm just wondering in terms of maintenance, obviously over the years, buildings do deteriorate and so forth. And I don't know, are they fully heated and maintained and watertight and so forth? That's basically the question, because I take it'll get worse over the years.
Has y ciarch gyffeim sy'n cymal yn ysgol sy'n hadw'n ti'r ffat ond y seiwch eich faragwyd gyda fi yn ysgol ag yr eist. Chyn sy'n ffracrach ys ysgol na parc agos ysgol friasga siachlad ffysgyd coiw agos hadr yng Nghamel y Dol. Ach l'ysgol holostach agos ysgol fiarneraich ha gyn yng Nghamel ond y seiwch eich faragwyd gyda fi yn y ffysgol ag yr eist. Ha cheswch eich as ysgol a dirwch bycan ga Nghamel y Dol ys yn jyna cainjwch gael ysgol ffyrwch chyrym agos ha cosgys fac ac yn yr cosgys tocoloch yn freit sy'n sydd yn mysyn. Agos hacking fac yn di bycan o bercari i enw i'r ysgol fiarn yr eich na betrai ys y fliwna ysdau bycan rydys le mwlwch ysgol ysdau styrym. Ach chan i'r cosgys fawr ond gain ach hasyn i'r as dy cymal na ysgol sy'n asyn ond seiwch eich hafrac yr achos yn ffysgol ag yr eist. Ach sy'n yn gan y hyfr yn cydioch gyda ym sy'n smian i hortir dwyniach na sgol sy'n gyhoffigol yn achal yr ewrodys y mi y Chyn ys yn Nghamel agos gael cosgys ac yn ysyn y fi yng Nghamel ond seiwch eich ffracroch agos bys yn y jeilig yr eisiau ymliwn yma fys na bailig gyndrych yr un ymoli yn has y naisg.
Thanks. Councillor Murray, Gordon Murray.
Thanks, Chair. Maybe the Chief Officer has answered my question. I think maybe these schools are quite a good indicator of the health of a community, and it's unfortunate that they are looking to be mothballed. But I wondered, is it incumbent on community councils and community associations to make the case to keep them open prior to any decision, or would that be just your consultation at the end of the year? And how would you see that sort of case being made, if possible?
And someone switched off their mic here, please. Yeah, just. So. Thanks.
Well, thank you. Jeme, ma hashin gyndig is na moli na ysgyn eich ni rhaid le cwrach le coes noch yn ma yen dwynych na sgoltyn biech a committee yn coes noch yn y laib yng nghwrach hashin hic sgrwydych fo Comhairle agus sgrwydych fo Father Malapa ma yen gyndig i dwynych sgol agus biach i hyn yr as chwn y siomer sy am da hwri siarad coiw agus bi corm ag y chwle dynnu ac i fel hwy eis mi as y sgol biech gehort machorga vir chamal faskil na machorga vir gunig so da chorm coiw agus maid 3 ag coes noch yn biech gehort de chort tachart gasgol agus ma sin kindig in mol in nu lenne sin jarne sin operation is on torske Comhairle leis na coes noch yn son jenna kenjach mi biech ag parenten agus biech ag boyin in semi as a coes noch ha smack as a skol.
Thanks. Councillor Macaulay.
Thanks, Chair. Still not a member of the committee. I was just going to ask a question regarding Braescliffe School. I know that it says there's been no inquiries, expressions of interest or enrolment requests for English medium in the Braescliffe School in August 24. How does the mechanics of that work? I mean, if I was in Braescliffe and happened to mention to my neighbour I want my child to go to get taught English in Braescliffe, they'll probably get the reply that, well, it's a Gaelic school, don't bother sending them there. I think already the Gaelics, there's English, ones wanting English have been going to a different school. So there'll naturally be no requests, I would imagine, because people kind of assume that's a Gaelic school and they won't, or is there, am I wrong, is there an effort made to go out to people and say, well, it's here, please, go for whatever school you want? And part B of that question is, are there, because Braescliffe is currently a Gaelic school, are children from other areas encouraged to have their Gaelic speaking children going to Braescliffe?
Again. So, thanks.
Da farst gan ich sin hier parst ha hica go chláirich ag to go bbliona le parenten is on ágréitsin seach go classe hin is on a bliona roin bí class biole an a skol Braescliffe agus class Gaelic an a skol na park fuskils go parenten. Kan is nie den jero is sin hartir falla. So ma ha parenten i geori chláirige jennu go class biole an a Braescliffe new class Gaelic an a skol na park. Fe diat sin jennu a chláirich fuskils ag to go bbliona agus kujoch bí ceanartin na skoltin na goper le skolarich chimchuler choirs nach go ginse a parenten go choramáin ma hat a geori biole in Europe is a christeach an a skol. So an chorm sin an haast agus an orsin ma heik dinne fishin smuain vela frakkeroch is an klasse steoch geriecht agus mar hut na betraich hiet blione va skol an klas biole an a skol Braescliffe dunch hanik an a 3 euro tussen de son biole ach ro klas frakkeroch an son steoch fi mishin adem ha frakkeroch is on teacher hort steach agus gemi klas klasse gopriches steoch as a skol. So ha korm ag parent in Europe is yanam ha sin hat geori ach an nulit is geharet ha kin ha parent in fetiat klechke skol mi hat geori is an orkli agus feti park at ha skol ach an hoirs noch geen fetiat tag yenu gas skol mi agus an anna part an hicht ha gadas in Gaelic ac na skoltin hat chimmichel skol Braescliffe mar ha agus a chutjes mu an hoirs noch ha larak fall Gaelic a dolch gan a skol ach heen. So en scholar an Gaelic an a skol Braescliffe chutjes mu ach son van hoirs noch ach heen a hanigat agus a skol loch foi tu agus skol hiapos den huele ha Gaelic achas nas a skoltin mar ha agus bin a koirs nach achasin bin a koirs noch gan achasin a klechkech na gadas an Gaelic as a skolasin. So an anna part se chutjes mu do die skol Braescliffe sé gan van a choirs noch ach heen ha.
Okay, Ian.
Thanks very much indeed, Don, for explaining that to me. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay. Councillor McInnes.
Yn mynd yn falch yn y comedi i gyda'ch. Cwad ys yn narsynioch gael ei seides, am y cwad di sgol fiarn eich gyharhaid agos. Stoch na hyfr yn y sgoltyn iddo mwyn hwyr y dŵnig agos dydd hwnna'n sy'n di sgyd yma sy'n hadach tehin sosial toch ook al aan voor een code lechit blione. Agus dat daar een kwaad edord. Agus dat hoort is gewoon stuk maar je natuurlijk ko maden nog met een ganexing. Agus haar een kwaad geld tehin sosial tot dat ook al is in de raast. Agus geduktion hoe je goed le. Ook zie je warrig gehoord kan na. Van een kegus mihakems. Bij deze nacht. Na de van tegen social ta sinne de hoekar fuchin geit blione des agus nu gin de hoekar wonnechen ba talig o kjörlichen ook kan skide agus nu gin je ha fin tegen een kan skide sin nu gin tokal tegen ure krochte dag agus de haar kwaad win een mollig kun we bjarke gehoinst nog befutigchen tachert agus kwaad die de tegen ga hoekar dan nu kunnen we rogadig de tegen social tussen gefiedig heb buig aardige gehoord in de geinstokken de we knieënig agus hij moet toch geinstok hele kalchtig agus Geneve had het we knieënig reden halt tegen social de we een hoekalen huur agus wien komoor vind je kom geinstok agus een tuinje is gewoon verschiltlich kwaad gefühlt tot de nachher tegen uur heen kan skiden schon.
Ami geindig dit de hasje gras geharret ha kutter mag se ha tokal tegen social te gatchalich an a koirsnochen ha tulich kan jon skied of jarnereich Eilean jarnere jerast in achel tjaldig ook as a koirsnoch hik leog die trin an a skoltjen ach bí choramekin re conrachtliche choirsnoch smian hart de get so vi tachert die tegen vi een hokal as a choirsnoch je charlie hule is jech geharres ma planning te mi an san te en social de hokal as a choirsnoch agus got a sin chom gan a choirsnoch conra hart sin a heb jechker hart ma jen de hachtasliche skol.
Okay, thanks. Councillor McLean online, I think.
Thanks, Chair. It's regarding 4 Tulsa School.
Sound
No,
Could I ask Mr. McLeod when he is to begin the consultations with regarding the statement of the school, or can you hear me?
no, we can't really hear you very well, Cal.
Taking you're not hearing.
Not really. It's breaking up all the
I'm
time.
in distant Aberdeen. Yeah, well, forget it.
But you can put the question in the chat if you want.
I'll just leave it.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Thanks. Cheers. Okay. If there are no other questions, is there any other questions? No. So do members agree to note the recommendations at 3.1 or agree to the recommendations at 3.1? Okie dokie, thanks. So we'll now move on to item 9, and this is early learning and childcare provision in the Western Isles. This report provides an update on the current early years provision and the state. Ms. Carol Burns will speak to the report and answer any questions. Carol, thanks.
So the purpose of the report is to update members on the current early learning provision and estate across the Western Isles. And it was to give, I've been asked a lot of questions, sent a lot of emails from parents and from councillors alike. So I thought it was really important to present a factual account of the early learning and childcare provision that we have across the Western Isles, and a detailed explanation of the governance and legislation that inform how our early years services operate. Included within the report, all of the settings that we currently have, the capacity in the settings, the attendance role for Gaelic medium education and Gaelic learner education, and the vacant spaces that there are. A lot of questions have come in about placing requests and catchment areas for early learning and childcare. Unfortunately, we don't make the rules for that. There are no catchment areas for early learning and childcare, and thus on date of birth it is first come, first served who are provided with the places, although alternative placements are provided in other settings if we're not able to give the nursery that's requested. There also was a lot of question around later entrance into nursery provision, the January and Easter intake. Again, this is something that the Scottish Government have detailed, and we need to follow the legislation that they've given us, the guidance that we have. And there always will be depreciated capacity for the latent learners because the August intake have to be provided with their place in August, which lessens the number of spaces for the January and the April intake. There is detailed in the report the dates of birth and when they fall and when children are entitled to their statutory requirement to a place. This also includes eligible 2-year-olds and also parents who themselves have been care experienced or looked after. Eligible 2s come into that category as well. Deferred entry, the legislation changed in 2023, which now means that previously it was children who had a January, February birthday where parents had a right to defer for a further year. However, this has now changed since last year, and it's August to February. So any child whose birthday doesn't fall before the first day of term, parents can automatically defer. So detailed within the report, you will see that that has created a significant number of deferrals from 2023 to 2024, when there were 16 deferrals, and 2024 to 2025, 47 to date. In addition to this, looking at how that then impacts on the number of children entering into P1 and accessing Gaelic medium, you can see from included in the report there, total numbers of deferral 47, Gaelic medium education 28 are deferrers, so that would be 60%, and English medium 19, which relates to 40%. Also, just to give members a perspective on what the child to staff ratios are within the nursery setting, we've included a table that identifies that the younger the age group, the higher the number of adult to child staff ratio that is required. Included within the report as well is additional support needs. We have a number of children attending our settings who need additional support for a variety of reasons. And this also has had an impact as year on year the number of children coming into service has increased. In order that we are able to deliver every child's needs and learning experience, on occasions some numbers are capped within rooms to enable this to take place. Staffing and recruitment remains an issue for ourselves as well, particularly in terms of Gaelic speakers. We continue to work with training and have our own training programme to grow our own staff team in order that we can continue with the childcare provision that we have. Also, there is a major issue in terms of the 0 to 3 provision, and we recognise that and appreciate that there are a number of parents trying to source a 0 to 3 provision for their childcare, in order to take up employment or return to work. Unfortunately, the Comhairle Early Years Service, we don't have a statutory requirement to to provide provision for 0 to 3 services. We do have one partner provider who provides 0 to 3 quorum, and also our childcare centre. We have looked at childminders and are continuing to endeavour to recruit more childminders. Included within the report is the funding incentives to childminders. It is very difficult to get people on board. We do have a very good relationship with the childminders that we have here. We meet with them on a regular basis. What has just come into to play is the Scottish Government are looking to launch a programme for Scotland's childminding future. I have a meeting on Thursday in relation to that, and the aim of the programme is to start addressing the decline in the childminding workforce. There is funding there for that, and across the piece the government are looking to create up to 6,000 additional childcare places. So the programme offers a £750 start-up grant for childminders who set up a new business, along with a package of fully funded support and training, providing everything they need to establish a new childminding business from home. So I would just like to say as well, it is a very difficult time for early years service at present, and we're experiencing many challenges. But I would just like to say that without the commitment and dedication of the existing staff who currently provide the high quality childcare across the Western Isles that our early level children are experiencing, doing so, they're ensuring that every child has a statutory entitlement and is receiving that's what's being received at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Anybody, any questions? Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Carol, for the report. Just looking at 7.1, what it says at the very end, have ensured that every child with a statutory entitlement is receiving it. Well, after having meetings with the Point Parent and Toddlers Group, some of them are sitting behind me here. Myself and Councillor MacDonald have had meetings with them, and so Mr MacLeod, I was grateful for him for coming down. But it's a huge problem in Point. And if speaking to these parents, some of whom are trying to get back to work, some of whom work for the NHS, some of whom work for the Comhairle, all of them have either invested in property in Point. I can think of 7 houses that are going up just now, or finished in the past year, are actually going up just now with young families that have invested heavily in Point and in the area. And it's very disappointing that some of these people now are thinking possibly of having to sell up and move away because they cannot get their children looked after from 0 to 3 and from 3 onwards. So it's, although this report looks it looks good, and everything looks fine on it, it's certainly not fine down in Point. And we spoke about the catchment area, and I don't know, is that legislation or directive? Because I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe that Edinburgh City Council have now started kind of ring fencing catchment areas. And I think that's what has to be done if it can be done, especially because it's a bit disappointing when, yes, we want childcare for all our children, wherever they come from, but when there's people coming from outside of the district and we're getting childcare and there's people in the district who can't access that childcare, it's not good. And I think we have to, if it's a matter of space, we have to look at getting more space. I don't know how, but we have to look at getting it, because this problem is not going to get any better. We've got possibly 90 houses, thankfully, going up at Melbourne in the near future. There's the Mackenzie development, which there'll be, I don't know how many houses will go up there. There's also the possibility of more HHP housing going up in Point itself. which will bring more young families. And that's exactly what we need. We go on about population retention and everything else. Well, we have to try and keep the people if they come, and we have to try and keep young families. And I think we have to continue dialogue. And I'm thankful for all the work that Mr. MacLeod is doing. And I know it's not very easy, but I think we have to try and keep this dialogue going and get something sorted in in Point and any other place that is struggling like the parents down in Point, because some of them are very, very worried about their future in the island and what they're going to do. Are they going to have to sell up and move away simply because they can't get childcare? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Stewart. Does someone want to reply?
Want to come in?
No, I mean, I can understand people's frustration and, you know, I agree with that. But within the parameters of what we can provide as an early years service, we are doing, you know, what we're required to do. I would agree with you wholeheartedly. We do need to look at the under 3 service, the 0 to 3 service, but I don't think it's the council's sole responsibility, but we do need to look at how we can develop that and move it forward. And absolutely, if you want to grow economy and industry, you need people to stay, and we do need to look at that.
Just someone, yeah, no. Someone, is it coming in now? Somebody wants to switch off their mic there, please. That's it, you're in.
Well, thank. I mean, teaching a delete this in Mr. Stewart to Tukal, I guess I may.
Speaking English because the parents are.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I understand the concerns that the Councillor Stewart has raised and also have met with a group of parents in Point fairly recently. And we appreciate that there is very high demand around the provision at Scolanry at the moment, particularly. But part of the things that are set out in the report have impacted on that. And it is a transient issue. And when we look across the state in the table at 6.1, there's because of the fairly short-term turnover of time in early years provision, the demand can shift quite significantly from year to year. So it can be very difficult to prioritise significant investment into spaces where then that population can shift. Although I do absolutely take on board Councillor Stewart's points about potential growth of population in and around the Point area and how that will overlap across both the Skull and Roo footprint and that of Stornoway Primary and the Childcare Centre as well. One of the big impacts that we have had is that issue of deferrals, the change in legislation that has been highlighted in paragraph 6.3 and 6.4 that have meant that many more children are able to stay on in Scolaric for an additional year has meant that there is more demand and less of a turnover than would typically have been expected. And that will gradually level itself out as that system becomes established and becomes more of the norm. Although it has been highlighted, it has seen quite a spike this year. The other challenge that we do have is the Comhairle meeting its statutory requirements for provision of the 1140 hours and also where it sits in terms of the 0 to 3 provision, as has already been highlighted. It is not a statutory requirement for the council to provide a 0 to 3 provision in and of itself on its own terms, but we do have responsibility to support the establishment of that, and that's highlighted in paragraph 610. And I know the earlier service is doing a lot of work to try and increase the capacity and of 0 to 3 provision and try and recruit new childminders and look at recruiting the provision. But ultimately, it's not a service that the Comhairle alone can provide. The Comhairle does not have the resources to establish the level of 0 to 3 provision that may be required in different areas across the Western Isles, but is committed to working with groups in the community, with individuals interested in establishing childminding businesses to try and grow that where there is demand. But it is a difficult picture across the Western Isles, and that's as demonstrated in the table at 6.1, where it's very hard to manage the totality of the service to make sure that the right spaces are available at the right times in the right communities. And in answer to the placings issue, it's our understanding that we have not got the ability to set a catchment for individual nurseries, but we'll take on board what the example that Councillor Stewart has highlighted there, and we will investigate and report back on the possibility of that. We'll get in touch with colleagues in Edinburgh and see if that's the case, and consider whether that's something that we can adopt locally. But as it stands at the moment, we don't believe that that is something that we can do. And also it is difficult because we have unintended consequences of some actions like that. One of the things that parents do very much talk about and request around childcare provision is having the ability to place their child in settings other than their immediate catchment one, which may tie in with work patterns or grandparents or other aspects of their overall childcare provision plan. So we do get quite a large number of requests from parents wishing to place their children in settings other than the one in their immediate neighbourhood. So balancing these multiple different priorities is not easy, and a policy aiming to address one issue could offset and create a different one for us. So that's something that would have to be fully scoped out. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Right. Nope. No, that's. No, we'll take them in the chamber first. Just replying to Finley's reply. Is there any? Can you just switch the mic down off? No, just I've got a note of you anyways, so I can get him back online. Right. Cheers.
Thanks for that, Mr. MacLeod and Carol, for your replies, sir. But I would like sort of dialogue to continue, if we can, and see if we can move forward as best we can with this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor MacDonald.
Yeah, thanks for letting me in, Chair. I thought it was great earlier on to hear the young noise from the back of the chamber, you know, to highlight the fact that we're actually not, that mothballing was spoken about along a couple of agenda items ago, you know, and I hate to think that the general population out there think of this Comhairle as being shrouded in mothballs, which is probably a fairly valid perception given the demographic of the islands. And if we're to do anything about halting that perception, and we spend a lot of money on the care of the elderly, and if we do nothing else here as councillors, one of the things I stood on was the interests of the young of the islands and the interests of the old of the islands. The folk who can't look after themselves. The majority of the rest of us in the middle can look after ourselves to a large degree, but the young and the old are the folk we need to look after. And, you know, we have an ageing demographic, and if we're to do anything at all to reverse that, then we certainly need to encourage. I mean, the two mothers here have listened patiently in bewilderment, I suppose, for 50% of the time at least. They don't have the translation facilities that we have for Gaelic, but you know, it's easy to focus on the demographics of the island and forgetting at the same time that 50% roughly of our budget is taken up with education, which concerns, you know, the 16-year-olds and under in the majority, you know, so an awful lot of our money does get spent on education. And this cuts across strands of various committees within this Comhairle. We're not just talking about education, we're not just talking about early years. As Councillor Stewart pointed out earlier on, we are working mothers here with the most varied range of superb skill sets, valuable professionals within their own rights, within the health board, within the Comhairle, within education even, you know, they're unable to return to work due to being unable to find adequate childcare. You know, the cost in particular to ourselves and the local health board, as you know, who cover these absences is significant. You know, and we have across that, Scottish governments tried to address it in their own way. But you know, their guidelines and local planning to be in any way effective, where there are boundary restrictions, etc., and the whole legislation surrounding childcare as well has deterred folk from going into childcare. We know we're suffering from a paucity of childminders, etc. And I'm grateful to hear that there's a plan to address that. You know, and that's what needs to happen. But when we're talking about sustainable development, we need young mothers to be able to have their children getting the childcare that they require so that they can go back to work, and not to deter them and their whole families to turn around and say, well, I'm not getting the childcare I need here. I want to take my skills somewhere else where there's better childcare provision. You know, I mean, the net effect of that, when we're talking about depopulation on these islands, you know, and the skill sets that we require to grow the economy of these islands and to get people to come and stay and thrive here, we need to provide the childcare. And I know it's not a Comhairle issue, it's not a statutory obligation on behalf of the Comhairle, which makes things difficult again. And another item that comes up later on in this particular agenda, we talk about inordinate amounts of different things on various different committees here over the years. And you can judge by your inbox. Most of the guys in here, most of the folks in here, the ladies, guys, whatever you want to be called, every one of us judges what touches a nerve. Several things come up and they do touch nerves. Childcare has touched a nerve here. We've had massive responses. As you would expect when you see a zero beside the availability in point, you'd hear representation from myself and Councillor Stewart. But we've had this, and we've got the next item again, which will be the work to work MUMWAR projects. You know, and again, and I'm sure I'll find voices who'll agree with me in here when it comes to stressing the case for single island authority. We're working at cross purposes here with our health board, where we could be doing much better if we had some joined up thinking about what it is we're doing when it comes to the most vital aspect of these islands, and that's the young people on these islands, and getting them to stay, getting them to raise their families here. You know, unless we address this, you can talk about policy and resources committees, you can talk about sustainable development committees, education committees. This cuts across every strand of what it is we're trying to achieve as a Comhairle, and we need to address it. And I'm grateful, particularly grateful for Donald for taking the time to come down to point and listen to the mothers and their concerns, producing this report. I'm grateful as well for Carol for the report. But it's fine knowing where we are and knowing this is the situation. What are we going to do about it? What can we do about it? As Councillor Stewart said, we need to keep talking about this. We certainly do, and we need to keep putting the pressure on where the pressure is required to be put, so that we can actually make this work for us. We keep talking about islands deals and levelling up and this, that, and the next thing. All of these things are as of nothing if we cannot retain our young population. Absolutely pointless. The whole thing just smacks of tokenism unless we do something about retaining our young population. And I would love to hear that young voice in 30 years' time coming in here as a councillor or a director and talking in here again with a microphone at their mouth. You know, but I would hate to think that their parents are going to turn around and say, well, enough's enough, I can't get childcare provision. To further my career, I'll have to go somewhere else because I cannot get on with my career. I mean, they're being encouraged to stay and take further breaks. They're wanting to get back to work. You know, these are the skill set. We sat in the church group down in Point, and the skill set down there was incredible. You know, and they've been denied access back to their own employment and the furtherance of their careers. So this is something that we need to keep talking about. And I'm sure Donald and Carol here will make sure that this stays on the burner. It's all right having this conversation about it just now and thinking that once this conversation is done, it's gone, end of story, and we move on to something else. Now, there are things that we need to keep focusing on, and this is one of them. You know, we can talk about this and then think it's done just because we've had a conversation about it. And I'm glad to hear something's been done about childcare provision. But we need to keep this front and centre because it's important. And I'd like to stress how important it is, particularly in Point just now, but not just in Point.
Okay, thanks, Norrie. Thanks. Can I just bring Susan in, because Susan's been waiting quite a while. Thanks, Susan. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. We're all acutely aware of how important early learning and childcare is, and not just for the children who receive it, but also in as has been mentioned today, in addressing depopulation and enabling parents to be economically active and take up employment. And like many people in the chamber, I've been involved in a lot of discussions recently regarding childcare, and there are lots of challenges facing us in this regard. But what's becoming increasingly clear to me during these conversations is that the home to school and school to home, the transport policy itself might actually be a barrier to this. And that is something that is within our gift to rectify. School to home and home to school is the way the policy operates, but it's not necessarily the way that parents would choose to operate if they had their choice. You know, the children will go from home to school, but the ideal scenario isn't always for them to return to home immediately. It might be to go to another setting for childcare. So that seems to me that that's something that we could look at just now. It would even make it more accessible perhaps for people who are considering a career in childcare, if they could have the children delivered to them rather than having to go and collect the children from the school setting. I just think it's something that we should be looking at exploring just now. And with that regard, I wonder, Donald, if we could have a report on the current state of the policy, and perhaps that is a precursor to initiating a full review of the school transport policy to see if it can address any of these challenges that we're being presented with. It won't be a panacea for all of them, but if it can move it, if it can progress this even in a small way, I think it would be a worthwhile start.
Same again. Can you switch off your mic, please, Norrie? Thanks.
Thank you. I'll maybe respond to Councillor Thompson first on that. Then the school transport home to school policy relates to school age children, so it would be obviously have some bearing on school age childcare, and we're happy to take a report to a future series that will explain the current policy position and put it before members if they want to consider anything around school transport provision, and we can provide information on what the statutory requirements are around that. The issues around 0 to 3 and 3 to 5 childcare is not, I think, so connected to transport. The in-school childcare most certainly is, and I take Councillor Thompson's point on that. In terms of what Councillor MacDonald raised, I absolutely agree with what he has described, and having seen and witnessed that firsthand, I can't but agree with it. And it's not an issue that's going to start and end and conclude in discussions today. Very much take that point as well. We do need to try and find solutions, but these solutions cannot be off the Comhairle alone. And we do need to work with other employers significantly, such as the Health Board, who are another very significant employer in our community, and also with community groups and groups that have potential assets and resources that can support this service to try and work collaboratively together to find solutions to increasing the capacity for particularly 0 to 3 childcare, but also potentially 3 to 5 childcare as well. So absolutely agreeing with what Councillor MacDonald has said, and want to support that continued work and continued conversation to try and find solutions, particularly in communities where there are high pressures at the moment, but also trying to look at it across. Like I've mentioned, we do get demographic shift, which means that you may have an issue in one community one year, but it could be in a different community the following year. So we do need to look at that as well.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Susan. Did you want to come back at all? No.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think, I completely take on board what Donald's saying there. I don't think this will be rectified with one decision. I think this will be a series of small decisions that we make, and a web of changes that would be made, which would then have the positive impacts that we're looking for. So I'm grateful that you've agreed to bring forward that report, but I think we need to look at it in a holistic way, and not in the silos of school transport is only for children who are at school, and then that doesn't have a bearing on children who are in early years, because quite often parents will have children who are in multiple settings. So it's looking at that as a holistic, taking that holistic view of it, but appreciating that there may be lots of small changes that we need to make the service better for parents. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor McSween online as well.
Ja, tapel of son Malika Shachkarike. Ha point ha cash checkum achen hojokami some point.
Sorry, Sweeney. Sorry, can I ask you to speak in English, because there's parents at the back here who have no Gaelic. So
that is the point, Chair. That's the point that I'm trying to make right now. We do have translation facilities available, and it is very easy to switch to English, but it is also very easy to hand out the headsets that are in the chamber. And I will ask my question in English just now, but it's not. I don't think it's appropriate at all to demand people to speak English when they're going to speak in Gaelic, when the translation facilities are up and running. So that's the point that I was making there. But I do have a question.
Just cut in there then, because that's my apology then, because I wasn't aware that the facilities were free in the public gallery. There was facilities for translation. So
Okay, I will. My question then it was just in regards to the point that was made originally about Gaelic and well, my question is, what efforts are being done in the wider sense to ensure that that like the Gaelic stream is highlighted as an opportunity to young people, and what training is available and what training is currently being delivered to ensure that we do have carers available for to deliver things through the medium of Gaelic. Thank you.
Thank you, Son Heist. Absolutely. But there's a few elements to that question. First of all, there is the aspects of promoting Gaelic career pathways to young people. I apologize. I think this is my understanding of the question that Councillor McSween is seeking. But we are working with young people in the upper stages of school to try and attract them into Gaelic careers in early learning and childcare, of which there are many opportunities at the moment. And in addition to that, we are supporting employees with undertaking qualifications. The qualifications themselves are not specifically in Gaelic, but are able to support staff through the delivery of the early learning and childcare services in the medium of Gaelic, and that's important that we promote that, because as can be seen in the table as well at 6.1, every one of our settings offers Gaelic medium childcare provision. And much more so than English medium provision, and it's important that we have that workforce coming through to support that. And there is capacity and there is support from the Comhairle for employees to undertake SVQs and qualifications to support that workforce. In terms of the childminding provision, I'm not able to answer in full, but maybe Carol might have information or not about whether there's any attraction for childminding for Gaelic speakers.
Sorry, can someone just switch off your mic, please, Angus? Okay, thanks. No, you're on. No, that's it. Yeah, that's it. You're on now.
Not that I'm aware of at the moment. There are none of the childminders that are currently with us that are specifically pertaining to, to be in Gaelic speaking provision. But that is something to consider in the plan that we're making moving forward as well. And that might be part of an incentive as well in terms of the plan moving forward for recruiting childminders. It's not something I can honestly say that has ever really come up. It's more within our settings, but it is a valid point that if parents, the earlier we start with children, if parents are looking to put their children to childminders, do we maybe consider having ones that are specifically Gaelic speaking as well? It isn't something that's come up, but it's definitely something to consider.
Okay. You want to come back, Councillor McSween?
No, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Does Mary Claire, do you want to come in at all? I see your hands up as well, if you wanted to reply as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Just to say that we actually have had childminders, Gaelic speaking childminders in the past, and we're currently recruiting for childminders just now, and we're absolutely encouraging to have Gaelic speaking childminders as part of that pool too.
Okay, thanks, Mary Claire. So who's next? Angus, Councillor McCormack.
Thank you, Chair. The impression I have from the discussion is that something needs to be done urgently in regard to this matters, particularly in the point area. And Donald, in his reply, mentioned the word resources over and over again. And I'm wondering whether there is a case here for us looking to provide additional resources. Would that help in any way to address the problems that we have here? I mean, most of the things that have been mentioned so far are matters that will take time to come through. Were this an issue, for example, in the care service, we would find a way of dealing with it. We would find somebody to do the care. It could be that this is just as important as that, and I just wonder
if there are precipitate ways in which we might address the difficulties, particularly those that have been highlighted in point.
Absolutely, there are issues in relation to resources that are highlighted in the report, particularly around staffing, for instance. But one of the things that we do need to take into account with this, and it maybe merits a further report further on in the next academic year, in that there will be a significant turnover of our numbers in Scolari based on the table in 6.1 after the entry date to primary 1 in August 2024. And these figures will shift and change around that time in relation to the new cohorts and the new entries. In terms of resources, specifically looking at the point area, some of the challenge we have there is that any investment from the Comhairle to try and increase capacity would have to be very significant, because the building at Scotland is at its full registration capacity, as is the primary aspect of the building. So the only way to increase capacity at the moment for the Comhairle alone within the point area would be to actually create another physical space at the school, which we don't have the resources currently to do. Where I think there is potential for solutions is to be working with the community to increase capacity in the Point District. And I'm happy to take that work forward with local representatives. But it would take a very significant amount of investment from the Comhairle to increase capacity at Scotland itself, due to the full capacity of the physical building available at that site.
Are there any? Yeah, just switch off your mics there. Yeah, just switch off your mics there. That's it. Just so we can. No. You're coming back, Angus? Because we need to move this on. To be honest, we're 11:30 already, so I want to move this on. So just hang on. That's it. You're in now.
terms of capacity and point, I don't think there would be a need to build another building or anything like that. Presumably, the Comhairle could perhaps hire a space in another building in Point. There are other possibilities, and there's a new one being built at the moment where there might be the possibility, even if it was just on a temporary basis, in order to accommodate the immediate difficulties that there are there.
I'm happy to undertake some work with the early year service to look at the figures and the circumstances specifically in Point, and would happily share that findings of that with members and community as we take that forward. I think it would require significantly more scoping and detailed analysis than anything we'll be able to commit to in Chamber today. But happy to look at that work to see if we can find alternative solutions for the Point District specifically in terms of the representations made today. But it does require a much more significant analysis of demand and capacity and resource, as well as factoring in the turnover in the population as it moves through into the P1 intake in August. So I'm happy to take that work forward, but I don't think it's something that we'll be able to have sufficient information to make an informed decision about today.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Francis Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll be very brief. I just wondered, looking at the complexity of this issue and the huge number of areas of our work and the work of other organisations that it touches upon, and I certainly don't want to suggest a talking shop, but I just wonder, should we be having a seminar on this issue of childcare that will allow us to bring in partners and look at the long term, because this isn't something that's going to go away. I mean, there's a new complexity every year by the looks of things, and the deferrals and the P1s is a new one. And I think it's worth exploring at much more length if that were possible.
Okay. So, did you want to come in, Mustafa, Vice Chair?
It's okay if you don't want to.
No, carry on. If you want to, have you say. That's it.
Basically, I just want to, I'm not going to talk as much as, but I just wanted to echo what Councillor Stewart and MacDonald said at the beginning, because we face the same issue, especially the 0 to 3. And I realised that as a caller, we don't have a statutory obligation, and we're all aware of the difficulties of building childminding business. But as elected members, and as we have a responsibility to the community, for all the reasons that Nori said there about retaining population and encouraging youngsters, and I'm pleased, obviously, Donald's taken that forward. We have a responsibility to take this as you know, and discuss it and look at solutions, not just, you know, not just reports and things. We need, my view, I think we should maybe, as an elected member, have a MOG to look around it, you know, and to look at all the nitty-gritty and see how we can. I mean, I realize and the difficulties what Donald is saying, because the situation's not fixed, you know, the numbers change every year and it goes from one area to that. But yeah, especially for 0 to 3, because that has an impact on returning mothers to go back to work. It has an impact on retaining staff. It has an impact on everything. So just
Okay.
Start with a seminar.
Yeah, let's start. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can look at that. Right. So, anyone? Did you want to reply quickly, Carol?
Yeah, I
Very
just
quickly.
wanted to reply about the building, about the suggestion about hiring a building. It's not just as simple as getting a space and using it. It would need to be regulated by the care inspector. We would need to have a certain amount of toilets within the facility, a changing facility. But these are all things that, you know, that would need to be taken into account. Also the space, in terms of your 0 to 2 provision, each child in terms of floor space, so just to put in perspective, requires a minimum of 3.7 square meters. So that will just give you an idea of the type of space that, you know, that you would be looking for a 0 to 3 service.
Okay. Right. Thanks. Right. We'll bring this to a close. Nori, we're hurrying now. Come on now.
I know you'd like to move things on, but I'd rather spend more time on the things that actually matter.
Well, we know it matters.
Yeah,
we
well,
know
it matters. I would like to explore further the possibility of, we're talking about buildings and care inspectorate buildings as well. You know, we have 2 decent buildings pointed at us a row on it in its duty, you know, and if we can have a look at them and see if they need to be adapted at less cost than providing additional space, maybe at Scholar Row, then it's certainly something that we need to be looking into. You know, we do have decent buildings in Point that could possibly be adapted at less cost, like I said, than building another purpose-built facility at Scholar Row. And going back to, I'm surprised Councillor McSween let this one go about Gaelic provision in childcare as well. I think it's important and in fact vital if we're going to continue the development of the language and underpinning the Gaelic language, that we have a policy. We have a Gaelic policy within the Comhairle, and I think we should extend that out to childminding as well, where it's required. You know, the provision should be a choice, given a choice of a Gaelic childminder, if that can be provisioned for. I think it's important as well.
Okay, thanks, sorry, thanks. Right, so what we'll do, we'll probably start with a seminar and then we'll look maybe to do a MAUG as well. So to thrash out all these ideas that have come forward and see what solutions we can come up with. Okay, so with that, do members agree to note the report? Right, we move on to item 10, which is Move More Activity Programme. Mr. Don McLeod and Mr. Ian G.G. Campbell will speak to the report and answer any questions. I would like to point out that the matter is in public, that if any questions or discussion relate to individual staff members, we may need to move into private. And this details the circumstances relating to the Move More Western Isles in the context of termination of funding for the programme from NHS Western Isles. So who wants to start? Okay, Don.
Toshi Mihin, more than thank. Aich dulich me yin se ich dulich ha sho maar ha bisake na bailer fat am kenjoch ha dulites in yes viaking le sham program Move More na nilen Siar sho program was stage fuchin blione generation ha ni shir vital son shech blione she horsicha le compartures le Macmillan Cancer Support Bartsland in nilen Siar agus a Comhairle agus va goper ma son univor I'm COVID on as a blione Davile spichit hanik Macmillan Cancer Support machas compartix of a show agus von Norsen va Mords Lanchen in Siar agus an Comhairle goper Conlach innovation hele on a program agus va Comhairle a reich tro Garrison Sport agus Lanche. Va sulaking version Corach lise words launch na betrayers of Leona gemich innovish firoch agus taik firoch lis program of shows on Coyu Leonella agus sin an Corach vaking version sulach steoch Conan duur is on liatige in program as gamma dollars on Leonella. Ach son le tamalt voor a hannig fis fan of arts launche on kun je wel in de narne laatje kan een jipling a steigen en hoe aan krioch nach kun nach ruat daar hort taik nu innovis kan een program tillich agus le koskische program Mords launche tot gain le 9,000 noot agus van hoorla kur koik 10,000 noot is een program agus verschillende pages on nog koproch koper as een program agus va tot taik voor de Torchen na choirs noch ca fistrach as an eis céint me dhéana Harvin wat al tronne program agus heikwa tort ganna bhain a choirs noch agus cuideach na paper conris an eis ha an eis vlional a cha dhéanú son nuri le fistrach communitrach me dhéana op a cha dhéanú as a program héin agus as se féken immer dhéana ha 9 agus chomas a ha ní sa ví ganna choirs noch. Hannig fysige gro mords launch tot in university fallafin is son een program has nie wie kan je geru agus fiachen wie koper kan je na werken lische words launch agus lische en of ik er een ake gehad just studies launch launch en poppel ach geraste gaat dan ik biech Jeffrey me voor een mords launch agus had meer gehacks en me gorga een program hack in stage rast staat agus go mé córa as an aimimrí teach me dhéon program Jeffrich program úr le innovis Jeffrich tuimiir. So an eisce tart fisacha me dhéanam program a séige fer bhil sin agus warach máléon fan na hóla me dhéon an náiar ard agus ENGG caiimpa cún rinne san Jomar in Cuideach agus criminál agus rás Cuideach me ha georí call a le gra ú sin eisc.
Thanks, Chair and Donald. Yeah, this very close to a lot of people's hearts, and the change this has made and the difference to people's lives this program has made over the last 7 years and previous to that with our GP referral scheme. It's saved lives, it's changed lives, and the threat to remove it is hard to take. You know, it's made substantial savings to the NHS over the period. Although we've paid in kind 15,000, our in-kind contribution has been maybe on that, probably in excess of 50,000, with the support and management, the use of facilities and so on that it's provided. There's been an argument that it wasn't good value for the community. It was equivalent to 3 people per week, given that it was 136 people that referred the program that went through the 12-week program, which is the initial stage of the program. But if you look at that, that equates to approximately 1,900 hours, which is equivalent to 51 weeks, which is 2/3 of the hours available to us in the program, with 1.4 contracted full-time equivalent hours. Not every contact is face-to-face, granted, some are in classes, but that is not the be-all and end-all of the program. The main part of the program is the ongoing element. And the last year, for example, there was over 5,000 interventions within the program, and that's people coming back to classes and maintaining their physical activity with us. The savings to the NHS, as I say, were substantial. A study of a similar program in Essex was reviewed, was shown to have delivered £58 of benefit for every £1 spent in the program. That was a similar program to ours. I can give you a case study which we've been allowed to share. Referred to Movemore of a client following knee surgery, quite a common referral. Rehabilitation support was provided following the surgery. Successful recovery was provided, improved management of osteoarthritis and knee pain reduction. What that equated to was negated the need for a planned second knee operation with substantial savings attached to that, reduced risk of cardiovascular disease, reduced risk of osteoporosis, positive well-being and mental health outcomes from attending a group session. So not an uncommon example of the benefits people have had going through the program. The retaining of the staff was seen as long as possible, was seen as vital, while the NHS were exploring or are exploring any other alternative schemes, programs. They're highly trained and experienced, and they have a range of level 4 qualifications which allow them to deal with specific long-term illnesses, which obviously enhances the effects of the program. Happy to answer any other questions or make any other comments in response to any queries.
Do you want to come in? Do you want to come in, Chief Executive?
Thank you, Chair. I won't take up too much time, but it is important to recognise the wider strategic and community planning issues from this decision. This is an unsatisfactory way to proceed. I say that without hesitation, because to bring a service to an end without due notice, which has effects on employees of another community planning partner, is not satisfactory. I have yet to see the equality and other impact assessments which NHS must by law have carried out in taking this decision. They have treated that, as they're entitled to do, as a freedom of information request, and no doubt that information will be provided within the statutory timescale, and when it is, I will provide that to members. But it is not good practice to end one service to talk about the possibility of another and to leave that gap in the middle. That is just not good community planning. I note that it appears that the preference is for a self-referral scheme, which clients would pay to access. Now, there are policy issues in that regarding the ability of some individuals to pay and others who may struggle to do so. But such a scheme, of course, would require employees, presumably ours, and we do not know when or if or on what terms such a scheme would start. So it leaves the corner as employer as well as provider of sports and leisure facilities in a very difficult position. And that is why the recommendation which Mr. MacLeod and I discussed is written as it is, to support and endorse the work of officers to attempt to continue discussions and to consider the Corners' contribution if possible, because, as Mr. MacLeod has pointed out, if there are no referrals from NHS, there are no clients, and the scheme effectively ends. But if there is talk of a future scheme, then we will have to consider the Corners' contribution. I take it from comments already made by members and subject to today's discussion that we would be supportive of continuing that contribution with our own employees at the financial level which we have already committed to this work. But it is an uncertain position, and we may well have to come back to members when and if NHS decide what their preferred course of action is. Thank you, Chair.
Right, Chair. Thanks. Right, I'll just bring in Councillor McKenzie because his light's already on, so I'll bring him in first. You got it.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Ian has summed up a lot of what I was going to say, but I mean, on the sheer financial aspect of it, the fact that on the study that was made, a factual study, that £1 levered in £58, I think he said, which I'm, really impressed about. I certainly didn't realise it was as much as that. But he said it makes a difference to people. It's saved lives. It's changed lives. And what I'd really sum it up was that the Western Isles Health Board are a disgrace in withdrawing this cash support. And I can't put it any less than that. This is a vital service. It's going to cost them more in the long run over the years by withdrawing this service. And I think we all know and appreciate the work that's been done in Catch 22, or, you know, with our various organised bodies within that. And I just find it incredible, really, that the Health Board just come out and say, we're not supporting this anymore. I mean, I can understand Macmillan Cancer Research, with difficult circumstances. They're trying to raise money and for cancer research. But a body like the Western Isles Health Board, to do this for considering the Health Board's budget, and I can't say, you know, we've got a budget deficit. That's 50,000, and it's going to cost them hundreds of thousands, if not more, in the future. I just find it incredible, and I'm disgusted with them. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Francis Murray next. Not too many mics on again yet. Just thanks.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll be brief. I had written down the words regrettable and short-sighted, but I think Councillor Mackenzie is much stronger in what he said than I have been in using these words. I really appreciate the efforts made by officers in our own corner who have tried to discuss this with the Health Board. I am very much of the opinion that it would be most unfair if a replacement scheme relied on payment. I think that is something we should resist. I did wonder if we were in the interim looking at short-term measures to try and keep things going, about the possibility of training up volunteers to, you know, assist with this scheme. I know they wouldn't have the qualifications that Mr. Campbell mentioned. I actually also wondered on an intergenerational basis if the young people in the 4 schools undertaking the National 5 Sport and Recreation qualification could be used to work with the clients as part of their qualification. They already do, you know, work in the community. I know these are very much not, you know, they don't come close to what we had, but I'm just thinking if there's a need for interim measures. That was a couple of suggestions. Thank you.
Okay, do you want to come out?
I maybe just come in on that point that with Councillor Francis Murray's making there. I would say the Coroner is making every endeavour to try and support the maintenance of the employees, and that's not necessarily a long-term sustainable position. And we definitely are able to look at other ways of providing the staffing. But the other fundamental aspect of what's happened here, as well as the withdrawal of the funding, is, as the Chief Executive has mentioned as well, the actual shutting off of the referral route. So no matter what structure the Coroner may try using its own resources to put in place, NHS has shut off the referral route into the programme. So there are no new clientele. And even with the maintenance of the programme as it stood, and the Coroner continues to try and do it as we speak up to the end of this month, they have been having to re-engage with previous clients and trying to support people who were already in the programme. And since the decision of the 12th of April, there have been no new clients come through. So there is no, without the collaboration and partnership with NHS, the programme can't sustain without an entirely different model. And it's really is with the deepest disappointment that we're in a position where we have tried to negotiate with the Health Board to get a position where we acknowledge that they may have wanted to make changes as a service level agreement partner to the nature of the programme, but to terminate it fully without giving an opportunity to have it running whilst considering changes to a future programme, we think it's a very poor way to undertake this business, and to fully terminate it and to disengage the clientele and to risk the employment of the staff in the interest of trying to create a new programme is not a good way of doing business, I think.
Okay, who's next? Well, you, I think Nora, you were next, were you? Yeah, you going next. Councillor MacDonald.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with everything that's been said. And again, I'll go back to 2 things that were mentioned previously. One is an ageing demographic within the islands, and that's going to be manifest in issues to do with joints, osteoporosis, arthritis, cancer, mental health, heart conditions, all of these things. Some of the things I've benefited from myself with the Move More programme. You know, and again, it's one of these items that all of a sudden you see your inbox getting flooded with stuff because the public definitely have a stake in this and care about this. You know, and for the referral, for them to have set a benchmark of a certain amount of referrals, and they control the referral process and then stop referring. You know, it's almost like they're poacher and gamekeeper. They control the game. And for them to shut it down effectively without proper consultation with a stakeholder is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I've seen some oxymorons in my time, but I didn't think along with military intelligence, jumbo shrimp, we'd have director of public health. You know, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that the director of public health is actively working against the public health. I mean, I don't know where this decision was arrived at or how or what sort of consultation was taken. Or did it just an accountant? I mean, again, we're coming across a situation where the health board know the cost of everything and the value of absolutely nothing. You know, and I don't know what further we can do about it. You know, I mean, we're talking about partnerships here. Are the health board going into partnership with Archibald McRae?
Okay. Thanks. All right. Thanks. And Councillor Mackenzie. No, not yeah. Councillor McCormack. I'm getting middle. Councillor McCormack. Sorry. No, you're on. You're on.
Speaking on behalf of the aging demographic, I've had a lot of representation on this particular issue from elderly gentlemen who have been participating in this at great advantage to themselves and to their friends. And it was discussed at a recent meeting of the Hebridean Men's Cancer Support Group. Men, as you know, are not all that great at participating in matters to look after their own health, which is one of the reasons why we have the group in the first place. But people within and without the group have spoken to me about the huge advantage there has been to their lives because of this particular programme. And in particular, I've had a number of people mention to me the movement in water, the support that they get for the activities that are done in water. And I really hadn't realised just how big that was and what a significant advantage it is to people. And they are now absolutely concerned as to what is going to happen now that they cannot be part of that particular activity. I find this arbitrary cessation of the Move More project bewildering. I just don't understand this Western Isles Health Board at all. I've had my considerable reservations about it for years, as you probably know. How they can take these decisions without the slightest bit, no consultation whatsoever with the individuals whom they're going to disadvantage. I just don't understand that. And if we are it was part of NHS care, so it certainly shouldn't be charged, that's for sure. But it should be reinstated, and we must stick to our guns and insist that it is reinstated, and that the health board should pay. It's a paltry sum of money. What is it, £50,000? Think of what they're wasting on consultants. Hundreds of thousands of pounds they're wasting on consultants because they're dealing with that situation property. And I could go on at length about how they're dealing with that. But £50,000 in their budget is buttons, and they should reinstate it immediately. And we should just tell them that from this council, that they should reinstate it in the interests of the people in our community.
Thanks, Councillor McCormack. Councillor Mackenzie now.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Councillor MacDonald, Councillor McCormack, and I think maximum publicity should be given to this, because particularly on the referrals side of it, you know, that's almost, I wouldn't say mafia type control, but it's a shocking way of going about it. I think at the present time, volunteers were mentioned. I think volunteers do actually, contribute a lot to Catch 22 or whatever you want to call it. But I think it's publicity this needs, and I would regret us having to take up the thing, and particularly if the referrals are taken away and all the rest of it. But I think publicity is a thing, and this is downright diabolical.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Mackenzie. So I think it's pretty unanimous. I think it's all been said already. It's quite incomprehensible, and especially with the referrals. In fact, that it can't continue. We can't even continue it, even in a partial way, without those referrals. I have to say what Councillor MacDonald has just said kind of resonates quite heavily. In fact, it's you wonder sometimes. You really do. Do you want to just quickly come in?
Yeah. Just because they control the referrals process, we shouldn't take this as that's it. It's a done deal. It's gone now. We don't have control of the referral process, so there's nothing we can do. We can't let it drop at that. And I know probably G's going to be horrified just now at maybe an additional cost burden, because he's working with budget constraints as it is. Yeah. But we at some point we need to find out what we can do and if we can find the money to do it. And we're treading down a very dangerous line here of taking over health board responsibilities as well. That's one of the things that we need to avoid. But like Councillor Mackenzie says, we need to highlight the fact that they're not doing what it is we expect them to do as a health board for the residents of these islands. And it's a shocking indictment of them that their Director of Public Health isn't concerned about the health of the public. And nothing could be starker than this particular decision taken by somebody who I believe is a new incumbent to the role. But we need to be careful where we go with this. But if we need to be seen to be doing the right thing by this and resurrecting it, then we need to do the right thing by this and resurrect it. But within what parameters? Again, I think further discussions need to be had with the health board, and I'm sure if Chief Executive wants to come in here, I'm sure he's probably going to caution against what it is we cannot do.
Not at all, Chair. I've been picking up the comments of members, which I think reflect the advice and the feelings set out in the report. As I mentioned at the start, that is why the recommendations are necessarily fairly vague. You are authorising us to continue working with NHS. Now that is on whatever new scheme they deem appropriate, but the recommendations also ask you to consider, and we'll have to tidy that up for the decision report, because we can't just have a recommendation to consider. But that's where we are. We're considering the Corliss contribution, if possible, and it should be, to any alternative programme. There will have to be a bit of leeway, I think, hopefully over the next period, if NHS does come to us with talk of a new programme. As I've said, that may well involve our employees. It may involve continuing the contribution. Mr. MacLeod and I will obviously keep members advised. We may need to take some decisions fairly quickly, but of course, if not, we will bring this back either to the scheduled meetings or to a special meeting. But the recommendations, if you're supportive of them, and the understanding which I've set out are essentially to seek continuation of the best service possible on the best possible terms, and hopefully utilising the skills of our own employees. I think that perhaps sums it up.
Could I just bring in Councillor McInnes first, because he was already waiting. So.
Yeah, just following on from what the Chief Executive was saying, what this is causing amongst employees is uncertainty, and anything that creates uncertainty with staff may result in staff thinking of going somewhere else. So we've got a good core of staff, that are professionals in what they're delivering. The Chief Executive made reference to community planning partnership, and the word partnership is clear within any community planning, that those public agencies should work together. And this is a clear example of why we should be moving forward with a single island authority. We're seeing so many things that are coming up, and it just makes common sense that we move on and fast track that as much as possible.
Okay, thanks. Just bring in lastly, Norrie.
Well, am I correct in assuming that we still have 3 staff who are at risk and who have had their contract extended till the end of June? Now, the end of June isn't a hell of a far away. So we're in a precarious position just now, as Councillor McKinnon has pointed out, of having staff, wondering whether they're being offered a redundancy that I think we'll foot in the bill for as well. So, we're getting to that stage of stick or twist, and it's only 2 weeks away. So do we ask to extend this at HR sub or whatever committee again? Because we've got 2 weeks to go, and these negotiations will take longer than 2 weeks. So I don't know where we are with the staff that we've got currently in place, and where their certainty is or isn't.
I'll just let Chief Executive reply.
Thank you, Chair.
Do you want to come in?
I just issue the usual warning about not talking about individual and identifiable employee matters in public, even where that is supportive. But members will have noted that I continued these contracts under my own authority until the end of June, with obviously with the support of members of Human Resources Subcommittee, whom I advised. It is an option to me to do that again. I would have to say, in doing so, I am adding financial burdens to Mr. MacLeod's service budget. But if there is a prospect of advancement of this matter, I would be intending to continue these staff in post, again advising and seeking the support of Human Resources Subcommittee in doing so.
Yeah, I would agree with what's been said again, and similarly caveating about concerns for employee circumstances, but there's also the challenge of the position that we're in terms of fighting to retain or reinstatement of the existing programme and the negotiation with NHS as a partner about any new programme. We're almost at a crossroads of that discussion, because the NHS position has been clear throughout all our negotiations with them that they are not intent on changing their position on the funding of or reinstatement of the existing programme. So we do have to make difficult decisions about, do we now enter in good faith with discussion around an alternative while trying to retain the employees with the skills base that Mr. Campbell has described, a very significant skills base in our staff, at the cost of the core, whilst trying to negotiate out an alternative programme. That is challenging and will ultimately take time. But we are at a crossroads in our decision making about pursuit of a change of decision about the existing programme or engagement in a partnership about a new or revised programme. So it's just to note that.
Okay, right. So then, any further questions or any further comments? No. No. So I mean, we'll obviously have to move fast on this. We'll have to look at this pretty quite quickly on what we're going to do, and try and extend these if we can. We'll see. We'll discuss it anyway. One more, Councillor Gordon Murray.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee. It was just when I heard Mr. MacLeod mentioning the negotiations continuing and recommendation C. Would it be with merit to take out Part C until all negotiations have been exhausted, and then at that point consider Cora's contribution, maybe even in a special meeting, given the urgency? I've had a lot of representations myself regarding this and how highly valued Move More is, but just to give the negotiations every chance of success. I'm not a member of your committee, but I think it's just a suggestion in terms of the process.
What's your only feeling?
I understand, Chair, Councillor Murray's sentiments here. In truth, if we are supporting and endorsing the work of officers in trying to continue this programme, I think it follows that we are, given we have a budget for it this year of around £15,000, that we would be supportive, obviously, of that continuing. Sorry, I'm thinking aloud. I don't want to rush back to committee in the recess if there's no need to do so. But when I can, if there is something that is acceptable that we could approve unanimously, but it's up to the committee chair. I think it will come back to members either formally or informally, and probably both.
Well, can we consider it? Can we continue anyway with the obviously negotiations and what we will obviously have to make a decision on how we're going to take this forward about extending the any contracts or anything in that respect.
Yes, Chair. The purpose of recommendation C was simply to authorise use of the £15,000 to a suitable alternative programme should there be one. Since it appears that Move More will not receive any more referrals and will accordingly wither unless that decision is changed. I wish very much, and I think that that's the purpose of Councillor Murray's suggestion, that we focus on Move More, and I'm entirely supportive of that. It is simply to say that if there is something that might be acceptable and might be of use to service users, which we can support, then we have authorization to do that.
So yeah. Okay.
Sorry, could I ask a question on the point actually between ourselves, which we're not
public, so
obviously,
just, yeah.
But can I ask the Chief Executive, does he feel that the question of referrals is not so important in the eyes of the Health Board, and I'm putting you in the eyes of the Health Board, but the £50,000, so that what I'm saying is if £50,000 was available from somewhere else and they just dug their heels in completely, is there a possibility you would still make the referrals?
That's a hard question to answer, Chair. I think the sentiments that have been expressed to me by the Health Board show consideration of both the financial and, in their view, they've commented on the effectiveness of the programme. These figures are frankly disputed by ourselves and indeed by the report which is before you today, but both the financial aspect and, in their opinion, the service aspect has been mentioned. So I can only presume from that they're looking at both matters. I don't know enough about medical practice to know if doctors can be instructed not to refer people, but presumably if there is no programme, then there is nothing to which to be referred. But it makes the point that this is a very unsatisfactory situation that could usefully have been discussed between and among partners before this apparent decision was taken.
Can I just bring Gigi in? Did you want to come in, Gigi? Because I think you had some comments on the referral issue.
I can't. Well, the access to referrals was through the NHS's platform Sky Gateway, and our staff were given special permissions to get access to that, which smoothed out the process of the referral system from GPs and multiple allied health professionals. So whether that could be reinstated, I don't know. That would be entirely up to the Health Board, but it was integral to the whole programme. That's the way it worked. I was going to make comment on that though. It has been said that other authorities do not use this model in responses we've had from the NHS. Other authorities, and we're aware of this because people have moved from this authority and Health Board to others, would love to have our model. So others haven't created. Yeah, we've created a model that others want to have, which it's been used against us. So it's a very successful model, as I say, that others, one in particular who was very helpful to the setting up of the programme, and moved away to another authority is still backing us to this day, and wish they had access to it. The other point I was going to make was that we, through the goodwill and partnership working that we've had with the health board and particular health promotion team, has allowed us to be where we are. And again, it's maybe worked against us. It's a lot of what's gone on is only happening because of the goodwill between the two agencies at that level. And we continue at the moment, in terms of what you say, what are we doing to try and sustain it? There are groups that have been coming into the sports centre and using our facilities free of charge for a number of years now. Cardiac rehab and orthopaedic prehab. There's healthy weights as well. There's still some kind of interaction there, but they are also aware of the fact that our staff are not, they don't know what's happening in 2 weeks' time. So it's been very difficult to engage with them. But what the other point I was going to say is they are so supportive of the programme themselves. So at that level, again, they appreciate the value to the NHS and to the community, which is where the important part lies.
Okay, thanks, Gigi. Just bring Donald in finally.
I just wish to make a brief comment in terms of what Councillor Mackenzie has asked, and I may be paraphrased, but I think the question may have been trying to get to if this was, say, for instance, fully funded by the Comhairle, would the Health Board re-engage? In our discussions with the Director of Public Health on this, the objections were not wholly financial. Financial obviously was an element of it, and that's what ultimately terminated the programme. But in terms of their stated case about Move More in general, there's definitely views and aspirations from the Health Board of a different model or type of physical activity programme. And it wasn't simply a case of just looking to find the finance from elsewhere. They were intent on trying to create a different model of physical activity referral, which we weren't opposed to having the discussion about, but our position was continue to fund the existing one whilst we work with you to develop the new one, and that's what they were not willing to do. So it wasn't purely and solely a financial decision.
Okay, right. Okay. Yeah, one then.
Sorry to continue the discussion. Yeah, I mean, from what Donald said there, from them to say it's not a financial decision, that they're looking at another model, to close one model down without stepping forward, it's a completely ludicrous way of working in any kind of partnership. Can I ask, and I'm sure between the leader and the chief executive and yourself, Donald, and possibly you, Paul, as well, have we stressed the public resentment of this decision? And again, as Gigi's pointed out, the benefits are, and it's not used by any other authority, and they're jealous of the model that we have, and it's been closed down. Have we gone to our MP, MSP, the Minister for Health in the Scottish Government, and said, listen, this is a ridiculous decision. 100% of people who benefit from healthcare on these islands are supportive of what it is that the programme was doing, and they're closing it down. Is there any pressure we can bring on them to interact with the health minister to do something about this? Because I mean, this flies in the face of what everybody's trying to achieve. I mean, when your health board's actively working against the public health, there's definitely something wrong.
Chief Executive.
Yes, Chair, happy to answer that. I have engaged with our MSP, and indeed a couple of the list MSPs have also responded and have made public, I think, they've certainly made clear to me that their concerns and their disappointment about the position. Two of them have, I know, actively forwarded, have brought attention to the petition that has been circulated largely by users of the service. So it is in that domain. I have, as I said earlier, asked for sight of the equality and other impact assessments, and in the Freedom of Information time should receive these in early July. If these are not there, or if they are not sufficient, it would be my intention, in consultation with the leader, the deputy leader, yourself, Chair, and the Vice Chair to pursue that matter further.
Okay, right, thanks. I think we'll bring this to a close. We'll continue talking about between ourselves here about how we can look at the staff situation, and we'll obviously just continue lobbying and keep pushing, and see how if we can actually get them to change their decision. It's a very hard decision, and it's
one final point on the procedure. I don't think we answered Mr. Murray's question. As I indicated, we will have to adjust these recommendations in any case to reflect the views of the meeting. So there will be an opportunity for the Coroner to consider in the decision report the wording of the recommendations. They're not in final form.
No. Okay, that's great. Okay, well, we'll move on. I mean, we've discussed it a lot, and we'll move on. And but what can be done? It's a tricky situation, very, very serious situation indeed. Right. So do members agree to the recommendations at 3.1 on the basis that will be changed at full, looking at any changes we need to make at full council? Okay, so we'll move on to item 11, which is impact of UHI's Northwest Hebrides proposals to move the largely online delivery. This report provides information in respect of the notice of motion made at its meeting of the 1st of May 2024 regarding exploration of the impact of proposals from UN, what's that?
Typo.
UHI North, West and Hebrides to move to a largely online model of tuition. Again, I will ask Don McLeod to speak to the report, and before I open the discussions for any questions.
More thank. Ga je dat ze nu zeer meer gaan horen zo'n eigenlijk met plannetje al aangeeldig naar Eilean en klassieken geur is gesmu lijnen. Als je gaan je horen geur en al geeldig naar Eilean en mag visser economieën en ik had je naar het show wat de Gianni als visser geur dat mag wat de kanting groot de zuiliger gemich 4 point zich hier het klassieken weer een jakkes lijnen. Agus gemich has ook het point zich hier de klassieken haast bio le allen as a room. As jy gan fisher sin hin amach a sin euro dis amach gus nicki his art sculpture na can hin agus tro school is on feinoch fakiat sin jiffer semi fisher va no that you could amach ma yin korsichin gaharach is korsichin va scholar na can hin goal agus kujoch fisher va scholar va the fakel school fein ma yin korsichin va the sulige ljanting as jay fakel school. Na frakkert in de huis in je raas, waar de kinderen grote hoes aan het trigen en skoltje na in je va een jakkes bio als een oldheig een nudi niet een jakkes weer een jakkes lijnen een naflon. Shin maritime studies agus psychology. Een art school aan de stornweg geraad zijn frakkert raas nach wat de fijn visser met je nachrig semi aan een doyen jakkes na koersje tro UHI. So Garo torchi jacking son means screwte genuere een huisbaar voor hij hoorle maar jerig dus een operation hier janu maar gaan dus een finken bis groot torachtige chien uit de waar UHI zulige chakkas geleine en chakkas bios a ruim agus maar beide zulige barach visser in huisbaar le barach chi just on screwte janu dus in college ijskelle hort ras gewoon show maar zo'n piech gehoord hier.
Okay, thanks. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Francis Murray.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the report. I think, going back to the last series of meetings when we asked for a report on this, it was non-practical subjects that were going to be going online. So things like maritime, there was never any suggestion. I don't think that they were going to be going online. And it's not so much the subjects that are taken by school pupils, because they tend to be practical subjects that the school can't deliver. It's more some of the offer that is made to maybe particularly young people who didn't do so well in school, who've either not completed school or have come back a bit later to an atmosphere that they find more suitable to them than a busy school. And when after the very day we had the last discussion on this, a number of us went up to UHI, and there was a chance to meet the board and have this discussion. There were some of these young people there who have benefited from doing qualifications like National 5 Maths and English, which I believe are still going online. And these are the very courses that I'm particularly concerned about. And I've had representations anonymously from members of staff who've been told that their courses are going online, and from parents of young people who had been looking forward to the opportunity of going to college to study, for instance, English and maths, and are not taken with the idea of doing a big long session in the evening online, which doesn't give them the support. And these are the very young people who need a lot of support. But I appreciate the efforts to get the views of the schools, not quite the group of people I'm most concerned about, I think, and the representations I've had. And I also, going beyond the scope of this committee, it's more the loss of quality jobs from our own economy, our own local economy, that could follow if some of these courses can be delivered from elsewhere. And I am a wee bit sceptical about some of what we heard back from UHI in the press statement that followed our discussion here, when we were very supportive of as much of that being delivered locally as possible. But thanks for the report.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Murray. I'll just bring in Donald here just to reply.
Yeah, more thank. Ha mi tikser ut va kains morach gragen va bach dilichen fein fissige troskolchen na kusperne gaivrin er raste ha Joshin fissige community me in fair day ha UHI journalist kolchen heen harisher en heim tepelakesen a ha dilichen fein fissige gekage for troskolchen me in de attacker to son ogli han fakelskol. Reinsin Europe is skolten son brientri ogri vesúlige fagal milione mar ha brientri UHI fein fissige me in korsine get te geviake as jay fakelskol a gatanik fissige geras ach mar me kanting garo torchi jacking skrite gejanu har is er naast gehort gaan ganu vasho agus fin college goperle Francis son viachen is jeugig aiskelle va tot skrite ger fair na kusperne
Okay, thanks a lot, Don. Are there any more questions, any more discussions? Councillor McInnes.
Mijn iedere kunt geharen, dus doet dat de graag zo niet je haak kudu Janne wie ik tasje kroontjes als een skortje toosje die los geharen in de uppers mare. Agus nog wat sin jas ne an jaar geharig an nuus samarai as sin je finken kom oorkel toorokri de gol vi an huprichen asen geharig hu tu an siest goppe de batichen ha tuach genoor an liadige gemach agus wat de fin de skillen is zo es skorten schon kar mahard geif kloos as de kleviges an asen agus had aan luis de hedig wel aan de storde wat gesho had de fin korm shunny as a college man ha ach shunne vergan roten de wat dan luis tjugus aan de marai she fugin je grone skillen as shunt bit wie mut ronne sho wat je nustjach wat gei fistig agus noorschen va fugin van a stone wat dat shies agus I janu parach kapitlo de assessments wat kan u noorschen agus vaakapet ma agus ha gematurlich gel schöndiger hodja fall van de skoltjen as je finken kom oorkel ha mi finken fugging aan de ballig as schön had de gloos was Storneweg had nischle de baatje nach gehien had kut 1 miljoen nunte sterk aan de economie show agus warke de schön had tot oprichen ga deunje inneherrichen agus stu had kudet had tot oprichen et kiet kutjoch agus de glooste fall af van een glachke hacking zullen we kere miljoen in the economy as an nús Somalich gehad.
Thanks.
A mi tig se, if you're class, tokel in Kujak Haraj, a course in maritime studies, for a version of feek and fish and tree for sculpture, galat Sulach Canadian courses in to the line. I guess she call of gan no cri corm of yak of gopper, the tutors as no like it's on we liater in horsake. I guess I'm smok gal corman has can barok op Janis and fish kain. Fairte in a course in had the Sulach a line, I guess Vela could all an creed barok coperian and smash on a doy have fracroch I've I guess get a call of a gun cat sculpture. Do you again the risk mega fracroch your ask le barok fiscal hot cook can you gachar?
Okay, thanks. So one of the things we'd got down at 2.5 was that should members wish it, a report can be presented in a future series providing more detailed analysis in respect to the original motion. Is it something that the committee would want to see? Yep. So we can bring that to the next, if possible, next series, and should be able to. Yeah. We'll see how we go. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. So do members agree to note the report? Thanks.
Paul, just before you move on.
Oh, sorry, Susan. I didn't see that. Sorry,
No,
Susan, you come in. Yep.
I got knocked out and I'm back in again.
Okay.
It is beyond, the competence of this committee, but I just wanted to raise an issue. I'm struggling to reconcile the information that we're getting from the college and the representations that I'm getting from parents, from pupils and from staff. And it causes me a great deal of concern that when the college make the statements that they make and sound brilliant, that the parents and the staff and the pupils don't seem to be comforted by that. And that worries me a wee bit. I don't know how the Comhairle moves that forward, but it's just something that I wanted to raise, that even though there's very positive messages coming from the college, that doesn't seem to be appeasing the people who are making representations to me about how concerned they are about the direction of travel for the college.
I'll certainly bring that up. That can be brought up in the discussions. So yeah. Okay, we can bring that up. We'll continue to bring that up in the discussions and just see what the response to that is. Okay, thanks, Susan. Right, so if there's nothing else, do members agree to note the report? Item 12 is reports outstanding, and that's just for information. The next scheduled meeting of the committee will be on the 24th of September, and thanks for attending. Thanks to Councillor Morrison for his patience and waiting. Just come in, Councillor Morrison.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I think we'll have a 5-minute comfort break before we start. So we're here for 12:40. We'll start the Ordnance Scrutiny Committee then.
12:45, yeah. 12:40. Okay, right.